and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a horror movie review, and I'll be having a look at the movie Sawney, Flesh of Man, also known as Lord of Darkness, I believe, in the US. So the quickest way to describe this film is going to be a Scottish version of The Hills Have Eyes, or sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that type of thing. Basically, we sort of told in a prologue that there's been this kind of, sort of 500 years ago, this kind of clan of Scotsmen ultimately that decided they were going to sort of feast on the flesh of man because they believed it was their biblical right. And they were kind of wiped out 500 years ago, but there's been sort of one survivor, and ultimately they kind of survived in the shadows. And here we have present times where there's a kind of a family of these kind of ultimately inbred sort of cave dwellers sort of living up in the sort of the mountains somewhere, attacking kind of civilians and ultimately taking them back to their lair and eating them. And the main sort of guy, if you like, he lures people in by pretending to be a taxi driver. And if you think about it, it's quite a good sort of disguise for a potential serial killer. I think they actually had the same sort of premise in the Luther TV series, the sort of season 3 of the Luther TV series. Anyway, and so there's a journalist basically who sort of is trying to investigate it, and ultimately sort of comes too close, and then sort of the police are obviously looking into it as well. But ultimately, what it comes down to is you know, lots of gore. Ultimately, very much like in the style of as I say, probably the remake version of The Hills Have Eyes and things like that. It is there is a lot of gore, and it's one of those films that is quite sort of flinchingly brutal ultimately in its kills and sort of things like that. And you know, they obviously use a lot of sort of real animal parts for their gore, and the I guess these sort of cannibalistic people are, you know, that they're pretty disgusting. Now, I have to say, the actual look of this film is fairly well directed and acted, I have to say. You know, I thought they did a pretty sterling job. However, I will say this: when you kind of look, if you take the horror parts out of it, you're just kind of looking at the sort of the more sort of character building sort of side of things, of the kind of, I guess, the good guy, if you like, and the sort of and the cast away from the actual serial killer bits. It reminds me of a TV show rather than a film. So I mentioned Luther earlier on, and it does look like it should be like a TV series. It looks like it's just an episode of like maybe a police TV series or something like that. Certainly the British way of doing it anyway. Not saying it's a bad thing, it's just kind of an observation, I have to say. Now, the film isn't particularly original, unfortunately. I mean, there's not a lot of surprises here. I didn't like the very end of this film, I have to say. I won't tell you what it is, but unfortunately, it kind of does a few cliches. And there's not a particularly original story, as I say, but the end of it was one of those sort of things that happen so often in these sort of horror films. It's just one of those things, like, why did it do that? But there you go. And I guess the only other thing that maybe had me a little bit confused was basically when we sort of get to know these sort of this family of cannibals. There's a few of them, and they refer to this kind of like a female one, this is the mother ultimately. But I'm not sure if she's meant to be like this sort of supernatural being, because she looks like the Incredible Hulk and seems to just like be as strong as that. So that was kind of disconcerting. I wasn't sure quite what was going on there, whether we were meant to be looking at some sort of supernatural creature or something along the lines of that. But overall, it was a pretty decent film, I have to say. It was well made, well acted, a genuine kind of like creepy vibe, and maybe a little bit brutal for some people. But if you're a fan of, like, as I say, things like Saw and stuff, you're going to get a kick out of this film. I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. What do you think of it? Leave me a comment and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.